Welcome back, everybody, to Kellen on the Mic, the only college basketball podcast who knows his best skill to a team would have been the celebration guy on the bench. I know I would have been getting buckets, I wouldn't have been playing defense, but I could have been throwing some arrows on the bench, holding guys back after a dunk. I know where my role would have been. But anyways, I'm excited to be back. We took a little bit of a week off last week, but we are back because we are in the home stretch of college basketball right now. We have 1 week, 2 weeks left basically until conference tournaments start. We have this weekend, another weekend of regular season. Then we get right into the conference tournaments. It should be an exciting conference tournament race. But let's get right into it because we have a lot to get caught up on with the Forest Five.
Run, Forrest, run! Run!
First one, the Blue Buds are back. I don't know. Well, sort of. So after struggling all year, I've talked about a lot on this podcast. The Blue Buds had a little bit of a resurgence last weekend. Particularly, Saturday, Sunday. Kentucky had their best win of the year against Tennessee. They won by 15 against the Bulls in Tennessee. But unfortunately for the Wildcats, out of all of the Blue Buds, they have dug themselves too large of a hole. Regardless if they win out the regular season, they're probably going to need an SEC tournament win just to make the tournament. They just have too many losses, and even if they won out, they'd still be below 500. And you just don't see a power conference team below 500 getting into the tournament as an at-large seed. So they're going to need a miracle run, but I mean, never bet against John Calipari, I guess, when the calendar turns to March. Another Blue Bud is Duke. And after the loss of Jalen Johnson, so Jalen Johnson calls it quits on the season for various reasons. We'll wish him the best in his career, but Duke suddenly looks like a new team. And they have won 4 in a row without Jalen, who was supposed to be their best player. And they've won 4 in a row, including an impressive win on the weekend against Virginia. They now find themselves right on the bubble, and they will still probably need a couple wins in their next few regular season games and probably a couple wins in the ACC tournament to get in. But they have a big one coming up against their bitter rivals, North Carolina, and the last game of the ACC regular season for both teams. So if they can get that win, you never know. Duke might claw their way back into this tournament. And again, once Coach K and Duke get in, I wouldn't bet against them, unfortunately. And then speaking of the Tar Heels are also sitting right on the bubble. They looked good, and then they actually had a bad loss this week against Marquette. They have a big chance to bounce back this weekend against Florida State. But we will see if they get that doing, because Florida State is long and they are athletic and they are not fun to play against. And then finally, no of the elite college basketball squads has done more for their resume in the past week than Michigan State. Tom Izzo and the Spartans, they have won back-to-back over top 5 teams in Illinois last weekend and then Ohio State last night. So back-to-back top 5 wins, as well as an impressive win against Trace Jackson in Indiana just last week. They're still sitting at 7-9 in the Big Ten, but the Spartans, so they still do have some work to do. But again, if you go strictly by the eye test, everybody in the college basketball world is saying they might not get in just because of the hole they dug themselves earlier, but there is no doubt, eye test wise, they look like a college basketball NCAA tournament team. And should they get in, pray for the number 6 seed that has to take on the Spartans in the round 1. You know, Tom Izzo will have them ready to go. They always are in March. So if they get in, I would like them as an upset pick, as I'm sure most people will. Now, moving on, Michigan. We got to talk about the Wolverines, because right now they are the closest thing to the Baylor and Gonzaga tier we have seen this season. Again, I'm not saying they're quite in that tier, but they're banging on the door trying to get in. They inarguably the game of the year last Sunday, they displayed their true offensive prowess, scoring 92 points against Ohio State team. It was the game of the year. Both teams showed what they could do. Michigan, just every team, they were offensively, the execution in that game was top notch. It was a standalone game on Sunday. You couldn't really complain about it. It was the game of the year for sure. Number 3 versus number 4, a big rivalry, and the Wolverines win came in thanks in large part to freshman center Hunter Dickinson. Sorry, I can't speak right now. Thanks in large part to his 22 points against Ohio State. And then they followed up with a domination of Luka Garza in Iowa last night. Michigan has pretty much secured themselves. I mean, unless they really falter at the end of the season here, have a bad outing in the first round of the Big Ten tournament, they pretty much assured themselves the other number one seed outside of Gonzaga and Baylor. They'll probably be the third number one seed. So good for the Wolverines, and who's to say they can't beat Baylor and Gonzaga? I'm not going to say it, not with how they've looked recently. In terms of the final number one seed, well, that one's going to be fun to keep track of down the stretch. Right now, even with their loss to Michigan, I would have said it was for sure Ohio State, but then they have a tough loss against Michigan State last night. So things start to get a little more dicey. Villanova, Illinois, West Virginia, Alabama, they've all kind of been, West Virginia's probably been the hottest of those teams. Villanova, Illinois, Alabama, all have had losses recently. So that's why if I had to put my money on right now, I would still have Ohio State as the fourth number one seed. But again, it should be fun to see what happens down the home stretch here. Just because that fourth number one seed is so huge this year, because it guarantees you won't have to see Gonzaga or Baylor until the Final Four. Now, we got to update, after taking 2 weeks off, we got to update the Player of the Year race. And because the last time we talked about it, it was Luka Garza's in the bag. I think I said it was over. Well, maybe not so fast, because the Iowa big man, while he is leading the NCAA in points per game, with 23.3 points per game, shooting 54.8% from the field, there's another challenger arising from the Big Ten in freshman guard Ayo Dosunmu from Illinois. Now, when these two teams met last month, there was no question Dosunmu was the best player on the floor. And there's no question he's going to be the better pro. There's question marks about Garza's pro ability, and rightfully so. Is he good enough defensively? Is he good enough athletically to have a role in the NBA? That's still to be determined. There's no questions about Dosunmu. He is going to be a lottery pick this year. And he has been right on Garza's heels in terms of the Player of the Year. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Garza struggled against Michigan last night. Could we see a National Player of the Year? One of these guys win National Player of the Year, and then the other win the Big Ten Player of the Year. It has happened a few times in the past. Jay Williams and Juan Dixon did it in the ACC way back in the day, right when I was a youngster getting into college basketball. So maybe we do see it, but it's going to be fun. I would still put my money on Garza, but again, Dosunmu is making a case for himself. And then finally, we have to update everybody on the NCAA tournament, as we always do. We give everyone an update. Again, reminder, it's Friday to Monday this year, the first round. So if you're looking to book work off, Friday to Monday, not Thursday. But maybe you just take the Thursday off just to give yourself an extra day. But anyways, the NCAA announced some more rules for the tournament this week. The big one was there will be no replacement teams should a team fail to meet the health and safety protocols during the tournament. So Selection Sunday is just over 2 weeks away. Once the bracket announced, there will be a 48-hour period where replacement teams could still replace a team unfit because of COVID. Say they come to Indianapolis, their whole team gets COVID. A replacement team could come in within that 48-hour period. But once the tournament officially begins, that is it. There's no bringing in replacement teams. And that's where you could see forfeits come into play. Hopefully with the bubbles and everything like that, and they have opened it up for some rescheduling if need be. Hopefully we won't have to see any forfeits. No one wants to see that. But again, there will be no replacement teams, and the replacement teams that will be announced just after the bracket is officially made. They come in some different ways. If it's just an automatic bid tournament, then the conference will get to select who's going in. If it is an at-large bid or someone from a power conference, I believe it'll be the first 4 out. The committee will select their first 4 out, and whoever the first one in the first 4 out will get in and replace, and so on. But that's your update. We're just over 2 weeks away from Selection Sunday, and I couldn't be more excited. So we'll keep you updated on it if there's any more big tournament news coming in. But again, Friday to Monday in Indiana, all in Indianapolis, and no replacement teams once the tournament starts. Now let's get into some picks, and I've got 3 for you this week. First one, yuck, you're gonna hate to hear it, but it's Duke -4. And as I've mentioned, Duke is hot. They're taking on the Louisville Cardinals, and Louisville has been struggling. Just last weekend, Louisville lost by 45 to North Carolina. Duke is playing with some newfound confidence. I don't know why that is with Jalen going on. Maybe just the chemistry is better on the floor. I don't want to look too far into it, other than Duke has been looking good. And I hate it as much as you are, but we're trying to make money here. And I think Duke -4 is a smart pick. Second pick, Kansas +6. I think Baylor will win this game, but 6 points on the road, going to Allen Fieldhouse. Baylor just struggled against Iowa State. Not a very good Iowa State. I think they were 24-point favorites. They just ended up winning that game. So I like Kansas +6, a Kansas team that has been putting it together as of recently. They had a tough OT loss against Texas this weekend. But prior to that, they had won 5 in a row. I think Bill Self has the Jayhawks figuring it out. So I like them +6 against the Bears this weekend in one of the best games of the weekend. And then finally, speaking of Texas, our last pick, we had to bet on the Red River rivalry. Sorry, folks, I've been struggling with my some of my speaking this podcast, but we're going to take the Longhorns -2. The Raiders have lost 3 in a row. Texas Tech hasn't been looking like they were a little bit earlier. Mac McClung has been struggling a bit, and I like Texas getting a back-to-back win. They got a big bounce back to win against Kansas. So we're gonna ride with Shaka Smart and the Longhorns. I think they're figuring out, and I think they're gonna be a dangerous team come March. But anyways, that is our show. I hope you enjoyed it this week. Hopefully I can win you some money. And regardless, we're less than 2 weeks away. We're just over 2 weeks away from Selection Sunday, and I couldn't be more excited. I hope you're all excited for me. And until then, as always, survive and advance.